the people of all ethnicities. And that's very dangerous. Now, has George Bush and, Bill Clinton and all these people, have they done things that have been race motivated or ethnicity motivated towards whites? Not that we're really, terribly aware of from a media sense, but this is a media issue as well, because the media has perpetuated this whole drama to the wrong degree, in a negative sense. And I truly despise the mainstream media because I think they are an interference and a hazard to our community as a large and coming together as people. But so President Obama should not have gotten involved in that specifically for that reason, because the commander-in-chief is supposed to remain impartial in this situation, and he got personal with it, and as a result of it, whether he happens to have race, biases or not, which I'm not the person to say that, I don't know it, but the way he put himself out there in this situation when he's never done it for a black on white or black on Hispanic crime, it doesn't look good for him, and as a matter of fact, it damages the potential for fair-minded people who happen to be black to, and not just fair-minded people who are black, even maybe potentially fair-minded people who are Latino, to actually get into office, because they may think they're going to take a personal approach to it and get involved in things that really they need to stay out of. So he did that, and that's very dangerous. The other thing, what's happened as a result of it, is that there is now, and the subject of this video, which is justice for Trayvon, Al Sharpton, who has a lot of not necessarily high praise. Al Sharpton's a media whore, let's put it that way, for the most part. He is a media whore, and he's organized this thing called Justice for Trayvon. Now, even though a jury of his peers, selected by prosecution and defense, and the jurors have come out as a result of all this stuff saying that they felt that George Zimmerman was justified in his actions. But Al Sharpton has now organized this effort to try and get a civil rights charge against Trayvon, against George Zimmerman for the death of Trayvon. Well, here's where this is all really, really dangerous. Number one, this is political. This is very, very political, and is not as much about the ethnicity issue anymore, to me, as it is about taking rights from people. George Zimmerman, as I've mentioned before, did the whole lost my train of thought. George Zimmerman acted on the concept of the stand your ground law. Now, there's been no evidence that George Zimmerman was a racist. People have been, in the press, have been gathering witnesses, some that don't even have any participation in the event. And this is important. This is why the media is dangerous, because the media has brought even witnesses, and you'll find it all over the place. They brought witnesses who say, George Zimmerman was looking to, kill a black man that night. There's no evidence that suggests he was a racist, that he had a violence issue, a violence streak. He was a participant in his community. There was nothing that was indicating that he had any issues. Whereas Trayvon Martin had a rather rough past. He had been kicked out of school. He had, drug and alcohol abuse issues. He had issues, and he had run-ins with the law. Now, those things weren't allowed in trial, even though they're character points. But even with those things not allowed in the trial, George Zimmerman was acquitted of the charges. But now they're doing this whole rally to encourage the Justice Department to call civil rights issues against George Zimmerman. This would be a really bad idea for two reasons. Number one, it's not going to improve race relations and ethnicity relations. As a matter of fact, it's going to create more of a divide. And number two, this is not just about ethnicity anymore. It's now getting into an issue about gun control too, because if you want to follow the stories, if you're not following the news, or if you're not a resident of the States, you may not know that we have been in the last few years going through a lot of gun control battles because of some deaths that have occurred. Now, keep in mind that out of hundreds of millions and millions of people in the United States, we have 20 to 15 to 20 kinds of acts of domestic terrorism, basically, where people have gone and killed a bunch of people as and usually it's because they're mentally unstable. But the political ramifications are they're trying to use it to create gun control and to control society, control how much access to guns citizens have. So this is very dangerous and very, very scary, because we don't need that. So I really think with this whole thing, with the civil rights issue for George Zimmerman or for justice for Trayvon, that it's really decreasing our ability to come together as people of all ethnicities and everything. And it's also politically motivated because they've been trying for some time to find ways to create more gun control. And when you have 100, millions and millions of people who do not do anything wrong, and then you have 15 or 20 cases where people do horribly violent acts, you can't judge. You don't judge the cake by the crumb. You know what I mean? You don't do that. You could have a burnt crumb on a cake. You don't judge and say, well, the whole cake's bad. You don't do that. It's not logical. But the government has always, and unfortunately and specifically, seems to be more a Democrat issue than a Republican issue. And I'm not, anyone who does or does not know knows I despise all politicians. Okay, because they're business people who are trying to make money, and they're motivated by the almighty dollar and the lobbyists that control them. So Al Sharpton is really one of those people who creates drama, and this issue has been settled. It needs to be left alone, because the more you fight on it, the worse it looks. There goes my alarm again. Good, because I'm almost done. The more you fight on it, the more it creates separation between us as people. And number two, because of the political ramifications and our rights when it comes to bearing arms, which is a part of the Bill of Rights. So this is a real dangerous subject. Also, it's also significant to point out that this kind of thing didn't happen when OJ was acquitted. People accepted it and they moved on. And I know that's 20 years ago, but the reality of the circumstance still remains. It was one ethnicity crime against another ethnicity crime. It's the same thing, and as a matter of fact, OJ killed more people, but he got off. But there was so much actions that OJ himself took that suggested he was guilty. Actions he took, the community at large, even still to this day, people of all ethnicities know that OJ is guilty. You'll see him talk about it all the time. I mean, you hear Chris Rock talk about it. You hear, everybody talk about it. Other comedians it slipped my mind, but I just remember a joke from one of the things that Chris Rock had said at one point. But everybody across the board still believes that OJ is guilty, yet there was not rallies to have him faced with other charges and whatever. So this is why it's very dangerous right now. And Al Sharpton is not contributing to our growth as people. In fact, what he's doing is contributing to separation more, and I think it's very dangerous. I'm going to close this out because I really can't get into anything else right now, time-wise. But I'm going to leave the comments by approval, because I don't want people coming on here and saying things like you're a racist or whatever. Now, I don't get offended by it, but I'm not looking for name calling. Okay, I encourage, if you have evidence to combat what I'm saying or to debate what I'm saying, to do a video response. Do a video response, and I will approve video responses that aren't just going off and saying, whiteys are bad or blackies are bad or Latinos are bad. I don't want to get into hatred. But I'm talking about real evidence to support why some of these things are right, a real perspective on why these things are right, then I'm happy to approve it and share it with the community. Because this is a conversation I think we need to have and to address this sort of thing. As you know from this video already, I despise politicians in general, not just the current president. I despise the politics of anyone who tries to take away the rights of people and who personally gets involved in something that they need to stay out of and stay distanced from as a commander-in-chief, because I think it potentially puts a danger into the ability of other people to ultimately, get elected. I think the same thing would have occurred if it had been George Bush and Trayvon Martin had been white and George Zimmerman had been black. If George Bush had gotten involved and said something, then he would have looked really bad to the black community, because they would have felt like he was, being racially motivated or discriminatory motivated. So keep those things in mind. If you have a real debate about it, then please feel free to post a video below, or just send me a video response suggestion. I will consider them, take them very seriously, and as long as you're not cussing like a banshee on it and just being, I dislike using swear words, because I think that it suggests you might be ignorant. And this is not a conversation where I want to show ignorant. I want you to show the world how intelligent your views are, and that's everybody, about this situation. So I got to end it here because I got to get out of here. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions or if you have debate to this, please post a video response below. I want it to be video interactive so that we can really discuss this in a serious sense. So I appreciate your time, and I wish everybody goodwill and joy in their lives. And I will see you next time.